Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan, and this is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. So if you'd like to call us, you can do that. The number is 512-991-9242 or through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw, and we would love to talk with you. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheist culture and the separation of religion and government. And every week, we always have a special guest. This week is no different. Joining me this week is Kelley Laughlin. Kelley, welcome to Truth Wanted again. You're back. Hello.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's like my dream job to be here. So yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That's interesting because your dream job involves not getting paid.
Yeah,
which
right?
is different from my dream jobs. Like, I would like to receive money from the things I do as jobs, but you know, that's you, and I respect that. So Kelley, welcome back. You picked a hell of a week to come back to this show, huh? What a week this has been.
It's been a crazy news week for sure.
So just to talk about some things, in case you're listening to this in the future, it is August 12th, 2022. The former president of the United States has had his golf resort raided for documents that allegedly contain information about nuclear weapons, and he just kind of like took them, I guess. It's still an ongoing thing, and we're figuring it out. But people are big mad on social media, and it's the people that you think would be mad about this stuff, right? People are saying that, oh, the FBI can't do this, and what if this happens to random individual citizens? It's like, yeah, I guess if you have like documents that you took from the government in your house in a box somewhere, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, what do you think about this week, Kelley? Because it's been pretty crazy.
It has been pretty crazy. I've seen people on the right comparing it to the Watergate break-in too, and I keep thinking to myself, no, those were a bunch of criminals breaking in. This is the FBI. It's just the opposite of that, right?
Yeah, like there's a warrant that was out for this. Like, they've released a lot of these court documents that were involved in this process publicly. Obviously not everything, but like they've been like pretty clear in this process, which is weird. I guess they don't want to cause a big panic over it, but then also saying, at least reportedly saying, that these documents involve nuclear weapons information is kind of wild. It's a lot.
Yeah. I wonder. Obviously, we wonder what that information is. We might not ever find out because it's classified, right? But just how important was the documents that he took with him? It's really scary that he could just walk away with that. It is. It's scary.
And it's already inspired action this week too. Earlier, a man this week went to an FBI office. I think it was Ohio, correct? Right, somewhere in the Midwest, and came with what was, I think, reported now an AR-15 like rifle, if not an AR-15, and a nail gun. And I guess was like trying to, I don't know what his plan was, to be honest. Did he think the documents were there? Was he like trying to get revenge? I don't know. But he was killed by the FBI and other law enforcement agencies later in the day. And they found his, like, I think his Truth Social posts, you know, one of his right-wing media posts. And the implication of his posts imply that he thought he could get through the bulletproof glass at the FBI offices with the nail gun, and that's why he brought the nail gun. So the best and brightest are really coming out this week, and showing what they can do, huh?
Right. And that again was also a false flag, the FBI attacker. It did, and I actually saw people on the right saying it was because it happened in Clinton County.
Oh, right.
So,
yes, obviously
right?
this is a false flag attack.
Yeah, obviously, because that's the big clue there. And then my son brought up, I mentioned it before the show, but my son brought up the fact that he went and took refuge in a cornfield, and a cornfield is full of what? Plants. So obviously he was a plant. That's the proof.
Yeah, we should advise we are just kidding about this, but there are like people who legitimately will take it this far. So Kelley, here's the thing, right? Last week, I did a little deep dive on Alex Jones and his whole shenanigans. Barely covered the surface, but people seem to really respond to that. So I was thinking, what can we do to do this again? So at first I was like, let's talk about the 9/11 commission report, right? And I looked it up, and that it's a 585 page document. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I got time to go through that and between then and now. So I was like, okay, what are we gonna do? And you know what I thought to myself, Kelley? I thought, the Newsweek, this country is so crazy, it's probably going to give me inspiration to talk about something anyway. And boy, howdy, did this week deliver, Kelley. Like, this is a Newsweek to talk about. So I thought, there's a lot of conversations about the FBI, but I don't know if everybody really knows what the FBI has been known to do, right? Like, we talk about the FBI and we kind of know what they do, but they've also done things that have not been best for the American people. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say that was a fair assessment.
Okay. So a lot of people don't really understand what I mean when I say that, right? They just assume it's like a law enforcement agency or an intelligence agency, just like anything else. And obviously, you see the dramas on TV and you hear about sketchy stuff, but a lot of people don't really know the specifics, especially if you don't live in the United States, right? And there's also, and I talk about this all the time on this show, there's some people who will dismiss a conspiracy theory out of hand for simply being a conspiracy theory. And there is legitimate reason to believe, at least in certain parts in history, that conspiracies, which is, again, a group of people acting to do something covertly without public knowledge, like, have happened on large scales. And like, what's been publicly out there about what some of the FBI has done is evidence of that. So Kelley, I want to talk to you about COINTELPRO. Okay, so what, you've heard this word before, right? What's your understanding of COINTELPRO?
I have a little bit of understanding with it.
Yeah.
It's something that I've looked into before. It was a covert FBI program that was used on and off for about 15 years, and they used it to infiltrate political and social groups to basically neutralize those groups because they thought those groups might be a threat.
That's right, Kelley. That's a pretty good description. So yeah, the COINTELPRO was a series of covert and illegal projects that were actively conducted by the FBI that aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, and discrediting and disrupting domestic American political organizations, including, and here's a long list here. Are you ready? Let's see, we got feminist organizations, the Communist Party in the USA, anti-Vietnam War organizers, activists of the Civil Rights Movement, Black Power Movement, the Nation of Islam, and the Black Panther Party, environmentalist groups, animal rights groups, the American Indian Movement, independence movements, including the Puerto Rican independence movement, and a variety of other organizations, and also the Ku Klux Klan and the National States Rights Party. Now, that's a lot of leftist organizations for the most part, except for those last two. Interestingly enough, though, normally I would be like, you know what? I'm okay with infiltrating the Ku Klux Klan. Like, if there's any group in the world that would like need an infiltration, I'm actually kind of okay with that. But it didn't actually work out in their favor either. We'll put a pin in that as we get to it. So, COINTELPRO, again, the secret thing that happened. How do we know that this happened? What are the sources on it? We'll get to that too. But the thing I want to point out here in talking about this is they did target specific political groups within the United States by allegedly performing psychological warfare, basically, on the American people. They infiltrated these groups by pretending to be members of these groups. They threatened them using psychological tactics and using anonymous letters to get out their agenda as well. This is a very famous thing, but I'm not sure if everybody knows about this. The FBI wrote a letter to Martin Luther King Jr. at the height of his prominence as a civil rights leader, telling him that he should go kill himself. Like, you can read that letter that the FBI wrote online right now. Like, the guy that's like probably one of the most known names in the history of civil rights in this country, and the FBI was like, yeah, we can't have that, which is really wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's the thing that happened. Now, why were they targeting these groups, Kelley? Can you give a guess as to what was going on here?
I think that most of them were considered to be violently radical, whether they were or not. I mean, if you look at the list, a lot of them weren't. But that was the perception at the time, because you have to remember we're dealing with a paranoid head of the FBI at the time too. So
yes, J. Edgar Hoover, who's an interesting person. But yeah, basically they thought that a lot of these movements, particularly in the civil rights movements, were kind of aligned with this communist wave that was happening in America, and it was kind of this McCarthyism that was going on, and really, they thought that these groups had more power maybe than they actually did. I guess they did have power, though. I mean, they did influence American politics in an unalterable way, but not in the way that most people think. Like, they weren't like Russian agents, although they did get some Russian agents and stuff. Like, they were just people who were, looking for civil rights and stuff. I have a quote actually from J. Edgar Hoover, who was the FBI director at the time, and I'm going to replace a word here that is not acceptable in modern parlance and replace it with something else. But it says, in the light of King's powerful demagogic speech, we must mark him now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous African American of the future in this nation, from the standpoint of communism, the African American, and national security. Again, he's not talking about Osama bin Laden. He's talking about Martin Luther King Jr., dude.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
You can't have somebody inspiring people to be free, though. That's a problem.
Yeah, I like, again, like, I don't know if we'll ever know exactly what was going on here and what all the interests were, but there's definitely a theme of like communism, right? Like, they definitely thought that Martin Luther King Jr. was associated with these communist movements and stuff, and a lot of other people in the civil rights movement. So that's when they did these infiltrations and stuff, and also bugged his phones, and was basically following him wherever he went and stuff. So a lot of stuff happened here. Now, when we talk about big ideas like this, a lot of people are wondering, well, how can we know that these things happen, right? Because the truth is, Kelley, people are proposing that the FBI and other organizations are doing this stuff all the time, right? Like, they're saying that these operations are even still going on today, or ones like it. And so how do we know fact from fiction here? Like, why do we know that this happened and not other events? Well, there's an interesting reason as to why. There is an organization that was called the Citizens Commission to Investigate the FBI, right? So they were this activist group that was kind of against what the FBI was allegedly doing at the time, and they literally broke into the building. There's an FBI building in Pennsylvania, and took several dossiers and other stuff and passed it on to news agencies. Now, this is interesting, because a lot of news agencies didn't actually want to post this stuff, because they were afraid of what would happen if they posted this material that was, kept secret by the FBI. But the Washington Post was the first organization to post some of this material, and eventually other organizations followed. So, the guy this week may have been unsuccessful in burglaring a FBI office, but it has been done before. Like, all this stuff came out because of this, right? So eventually, the additional documents were revealed, and there were some lawsuits that were filed against the FBI. And because of this, there was a committee that was put together I believe it was a Senate committee that was put together called the Church Committee, that basically went over like what is actually happening here and what's going on. And this was this was the 70s, by the way, when this was being uncovered. They had been at least doing this stuff since the 50s, which is interesting to know. And once all this stuff kind of got out, they were basically like, yeah, you know, we're doing this stuff, but we're not doing this stuff anymore, or we're not going to do any of this stuff anymore because you know, we're not going to do it. And really it should be because it violated the constitutional rights of Americans, but who knows why, right? Like they probably didn't want to have another incident like this. Maybe with technology growing the way it was and organizations growing the way they were, it became harder to do that kind of stuff. I don't know. But according to the FBI, they don't do COINTELPRO anymore and don't agitate for these groups. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know what kind of other stuff they'd be doing, because like this isn't the only time the FBI has ever been sketchy, right? I'm choosing a particular part of FBI history to talk about. We haven't even talked about their influence in arresting and messing with people in Latin American countries and, you know, all the other stuff that they've done. But like this is the big reason, or one of the big cases that came out of this that people talk about, the FBI doing these covert operations. Like this is the reason why people talk about, oh yeah, they're definitely doing this stuff, because they did. Like they actually did, and people didn't know about it until these documents came out. I mean, like I say people didn't know about it. Obviously, those people burgled that building because they had suspicions, they had allegations. But unless you had actual documents that were demonstrating this stuff, I mean, how do you prove that? If the FBI shows up to my house right now and I don't record that, I mean, how am I supposed to demonstrate that to somebody that it really happened? Right. So it's really interesting, Kelley. And you had some thoughts on COINTELPRO too that I think you should mention.
Well, the one thing that always comes to mind when I hear COINTELPRO is, and I think you mentioned it, is that conspiracy theorists always use it as proof that their conspiracy is true. Well, you know, they got away with COINTELPRO and nobody knew about it, so they're obviously doing this other one too, which I always found really a really strange leap of logic, right? I also wonder if, I mean, they say they're not doing COINTELPRO, but we keep hearing things that seem like they're still doing these things, and I don't see why they couldn't do some of them still, but on a legal level, right? A lot of the things that they did were illegal at the time, but I don't think some of them are still illegal, right? So there's really no reason why they shouldn't be doing anything like this. And we recently had a problem in my home state of Michigan where some right-leaning militia members tried to kidnap our governor. They called themselves the Wolverine Watchmen. It was just a bunch of guys playing dress up, basically. But their defense in court was that the FBI set them up. The FBI had radicalized the group and came up with the whole idea of kidnapping the governor, that they never would have done anything like that without the FBI. And two of the 4 people arrested have been acquitted, and they had 2 mistrials. They're back on trial right now. Yeah. But it makes you wonder if this in fact did happen. I mean, who's lying here, them or the FBI? And we know that, well, we know both can be lying. So how do we tell the difference? Who's truthful here?
Yeah, I mean, like, so, like, you know, this is where I go back to, like, what's legal and what's not legal, right? Because a big problem with what happened with COINTELPRO is that the stuff they were doing was illegal, and that the people that could actually hold them accountable didn't actually know what they were doing, right? So there are, there's a specific act that the FBI has to follow now that's been put into law, that they can't wiretap a phone without a consent. Like, okay, that's great, but it's still legal to bug a phone, which is somehow different from wiretapping, right? Like there are these kind of loopholes that you can get around with doing this kind of stuff. The thing that happened with Trump this week is, you know, there are signed affidavits. They went, this warrant is publicly available, at least a lot of portions of it are, and they actually went through the legal process that a cop could do to like search in particular parts of the house. And this kind of warrant, by the way, is very specific in that they had to specifically know what was in the house and where these things were located. And they talk about this a little bit in some of the stories I've been reading, that some people got to visit the house earlier, and they pointed out where some of these documents could be because of the nature of this kind of raid. Essentially, you have to know specifically where these documents are, and you actually have to write it out when you're getting this warrant done, because there are some rules that protect, especially former presidents, from having this kind of stuff happen. So like there are protections in place for the American people to kind of fight against a lot of these things. But if things are happening covertly and in secret, and you don't have record of it, I mean, that's when things get really shady, right? That's when it's like, I don't know territory, where it's like, I can't prove or deny that the FBI has done any kind of specific event in the past couple years, right? Like maybe we'll have somebody find some documents that prove otherwise. But it's free because like this wasn't demonstrated to be true until an act of crime happened, essentially, and took these documents. Now, granted, what the FBI was doing was also, illegal. So the morality of that you can sort out for yourself. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating when people tell me, yeah, the big organizations, they have to keep this stuff secret. Like, they can't keep this stuff secret. Somebody's got to tell. It's like, man, you know what? I don't buy that, because this stuff has happened and is probably continuing to happen, if not in the United States, then to other places, abroad. But it's very fascinating stuff. Any closing thoughts on this, Kelly?
I'm actually really surprised that they were able to keep that secret for 15 years. It really does surprise me. I can't keep the plans for a surprise birthday party secret for 2 weeks with 10 people. So
yeah,
there must have been some really good agents involved in that have kept that as secret as they did. It blows me away.
I guess so. Well, it couldn't have been so secret that people didn't figure out it was the FBI. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, raided the building. But it's like,
right. Obviously, suspicions were out there, right?
Right. Under a court of law, though, right? When they actually sussed out the details, that's where this was found. So anyway, that's my Dan's deep dive on COINTELPRO. Again, I still feel like it's not a dive. I still feel like it's a shallow swim in the pool because of these time restraints. But if you guys like this kind of stuff, please let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll come up with more fun topics to talk about and for you to look into on your own time. Would love to hear more from you, the audience, about that stuff. But hey, now it's time to get to some calls. What do you think, Kelly?
Awesome. I see we got a pretty good looking one there waiting for us. So
yeah, definitely. But before we get to our calls, we always have to thank our patron of the week. Every single week, we always thank at least one person from our Patreon. It's tiny.cc/PatreonTW. I want to thank everybody that donates on that Patreon. You guys rock. But we always give a special shout out to one patron every week. And this week's patron of the week is going to be Gabriel Guerra. I think Guerra. I think it's Guerra. Thank you, Gabriel Guerra, for donating on there. And if you would like to help support this show, Patreon is a great place to do it. Please consider following that link. And if you don't remember what I just said about it, you can find it in the description, just like all the other fun links that we have for this show. So with that out of the way, Kelly, you ready to talk to some people?
I am totally ready.
All right, cool. Let's do it. So first call of the night, we got D is the name here, calling in from Scotland. D, you are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Wait, are you talking to Scotland or B?
Oh, I see D up there. Is your name Scotland? I'm sorry. I must have gotten
my name
confused on
Scotland.
that. Okay, Scotland. Oh, I see. I was reading our call screen wrong. It's Scotland calling in from New York. There's some other information on here that I got confused. Scotland, thanks so much for calling. What's going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Objectively Dan and Kelly. How are you guys doing tonight, first of all?
Man, let me tell you, this news week keeps getting crazier. Like 3 hours ago, the Department of Justice is investigating the Southern Baptist Convention, I think, for 20 years of a sex crime cover up. So that's something I gotta look into. Yeah, it's a crazy week for news. Crazy week.
And Salman Rushdie got attacked today.
Yeah, Salman Rushdie got stabbed.
What?
What's going on? Yeah, dude, it's wild.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Wow. Anyway, share with me how I put the order of my topics in the call screen, because that's kind of the order that I'd like to go in. Or if you wanted to go pick one out of interest, that'd be cool too.
I see that you wanted to talk about. So this is what I have listed here: the natural cycle of the rebirth of the cosmos, the natural reincarnation, and how the multiverse theory may help disprove God. I guess that's the one that's most interesting to me. How does the multiverse theory disprove God?
Well, if there is a multiplicity of universes and dimensions, or extra-dimensional dimensions, or however you want to say it, perhaps in voidless spaces of space-time, perhaps Big Bang, natural occurring Big Bangs are a common occurrence, and the thing that just create other universes in other realms of voidless space-time. So, I mean, if it's occurring commonly and that naturally, depending on, we don't know what rate the other dimensions are created. I mean, who knows? We don't know much about it. It's only at this point a theory, but I mean,
what if I just said, but Scotland, what if I just said God exists outside of the observable multiverse?
Right, I know. That was my initial thought when I came up with this theory. I was like, the kitsch of it, the cinch of it is, well, God exists outside of the multiverse and created the multiverse just like as just another more facets to the wonderful watch he's created as this awe-inspiring watchmaker or artist,
Yeah.
But do we really? So, but that was you're an atheist, Dan. That was a really agnostic question.
Well, I'm just saying. I have to argue for fairness, right? I'm an atheist, but this show's truth wanted. This ain't the atheist experience. I want to know what's really true. And if somebody can propose to me a model of the universe that makes the most sense with a God existing in it, then I want to know if that's true. Now, obviously, I don't believe that's out there. But right. I don't know. It seems like, you can still argue and say God exists outside of the universe and God can exist outside the multiverse. And that kind of leads to the same kinds of problems, but you can still kind of make that argument, I guess. I don't know how that'd be too different.
Mm-hmm. I was wondering how you were so convinced that we are actually existing in a multiverse.
I'm not necessarily convinced of it, which is why I said the theory of the multiverse may bolster to disprove God. I would like to see the multiverse theory proved in my lifetime, just because I think it's friggin' that cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, so I guess the response to my own question would be I don't know what observable qualities would make a God a thing in the first place. If he doesn't exist within the universe, then he's literally outside of the purview of science. And to me, that means that he's unknowable in some sense. Now, when we talk about the Christian God, of course, he has existed within the universe. If you follow those stories and you take a literal interpretation, he literally walked on earth. And I'm not talking about Jesus, God himself in the Old Testament has walked on earth, and Jesus, and all of the, heavenly holies or whatever. But, Christians will often say, well, but we don't have to go that far. We just can talk about this sort of theistic conception of God. Can we at least get to this philosophical argument that maybe lends credence to this idea that something, has to exist because there can't just be nothing and all this stuff. And that's where, one, I think it's disingenuous, but also I still find it problematic because it's just kind of a philosophical pandering almost. I mean, you could argue that maybe anything exists. It doesn't really convince me that that thing is more true than anything else, right? Go ahead, Scott.
Can I tell you why I believe in God?
Why do you believe in God, Scotland?
I believe in God not necessarily because there's any evidence or proof of God's existence, but rather for the romance sake of it all, for the story of it all, for the tale, or because it's like another spice in the cabinet. You know what I mean? There's so many religions to choose from. You can niche, you can match, you can cherry pick. You can, whatever you want to do, you can do it. It's just another
Sure.
spice in the cabinet.
Sure.
So
Sure.
Flavor of life.
that would, but using that logic, wouldn't I be justified in believing in, say, Iru Ilúvatar from the Silmarillion?
Why not? He could exist. Why not?
But
Mm.
why?
He could exist. Why doesn't he?
I am just
Can you
wondering
prove-
why I
can
would
you
want
prove
to
he
put
can't?
my, why would I want to put my belief into something that I couldn't prove was true? I mean, I might be putting all my energy into believing something that's not true. So why would I want to do that? So how could I tell the difference?
Well, for me, I think that's an unfair question because for me, it all lays in romance and hope. I would like to live forever. I'd like to live forever in a place with no pain, no suffering, no death. Always
Yeah.
light, never darkness.
But
And I think that's the panacea that religion offers you. And those, why would you take from me on my deathbed? What are my dying thoughts going to be? Where am I going to be looking to? If I'm coherent enough.
I can answer that. And there, I respect Skyland, I respect the hustle. I respect the hustle and saying, yeah, I don't know if this shit is true or not. I just like it. You know what? That's a vibe. I'll meet you there. Okay. That's a post-truth, postmodern idea of truth. And you know what? There's some people who are perfectly acceptant of that and they live their lives how they see fit. And if you can make that work, that's great. I can't make that work for myself. And I wouldn't wish it upon others for a few reasons. One of them being, for every person that has the panacea belief that I'm going to go to heaven after this, my life has an ultimate meaning, there's a creator that has a plan for me, there's another person that says, yeah, I have a plan and God gave it to me, and he says that I should make sure that gay people know that they're living a life of sin and shouldn't have the same rights as me. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
These ideologies come from the same place. They come from wishful thinking, and that harms people, right? Ultimately, there's measurable harm that can be demonstrated from that. So while on the same token, it could be great for people's lives and an inspiration for them to honestly live their best lives, it can also be the fuel for an ideology that's not only totalitarian in nature in some cases, but also just epically ruins the potential of human lives, right?
I bet one of your favorite songs, Dan, is John Lennon, "Imagine," isn't it? That's one of your favorite songs, right?
That's like because the thing about John Lennon is like he had this great, kind of cool liberal what if heaven wasn't real and stuff, but he was like a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like he took his non-specific ties to an ideology to kind of do whatever he wanted. I wouldn't even go so far as to say that
I don't know too much about John Lennon's life, so I can't comment.
Personal opinion, I think he sucks. I think he actually represents the worst of what atheism can offer, which is a life of just doing whatever you want without consequences. Oh yeah, I don't believe in that. I don't think that's the best way you can live your life, and I don't think it's the way people should live their lives. I do believe in living life with purpose. Yeah, go. What's that?
Trust me, Ken. I think definitely. I drive with that, and I think that atheism has, as someone who believes or at least hopes that God exists and is good and just and not a tyrant like the book portrays him to be sometimes or most of it. I respect atheism, and I see a lot of merit and value in atheistic ideals, and I value the stance on humanism that atheist takes and humanitarianism. I appreciate all that. I think I think atheism has a lot of value and a lot to offer the world. By better days, I'm an atheist.
Okay. But if you're encountering somebody that is fundamentalist in nature and wants to talk about things, and this is a rising thing that's happening in this country. People who really want Christian nationalism to be the ruling ideology for the American people. Like, how do you counter that if you're saying that the place where they get their religion is the same place where you get your religion? Like, what basis do you have to tell them that they're wrong? You have nothing to fight with in that, right?
Well,
Like, that's
I do my Kelley. Do you want to chime in here too? Do you want to ask a question? Because I feel like you want to say something too.
No, I thought Dan's question was a really good question. How do you determine?
Well, here's the answer, Dan. Here's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the best answer I can.
Okay.
I do my best.
I want to hear it.
I do my best. I do my best to fight to combat fundamentalists because fundamentalists only answer like they're like the word says it, the Bible says it, I believe it, that settles it.
Sure.
You can't come at them.
Mm-hmm.
You can't come at them with philosophy. You have to come at them with the Bible. So I come at them with the Bible the best way I can, and I fight. And when I talk, like I've had so many Christians like shun me and abandon me after speaking to me so often that it put them in such an utter state of confusion that they started to doubt their beliefs in God and their fundamental Christian beliefs because they couldn't challenge me.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, you sound like an atheist activist, Scotland. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, right.
Like you sound like you're doing the work for us, and that's great. Look, listen. Here's the thing, Scotland. I appreciate that you do that. I think that is the right thing to do. But I think the reason that I think it's the right thing to do is different from the reason that you might think it's the right thing to do. Ironically enough.
Why do you think it's the right thing to do?
For the same, well, actually, I say it's different, but some of it's the same, right? It's like I also think that this stuff is harmful, right? I also think that this stuff shouldn't be a thing, and it's not what I would want for the world, right? So I'm trying to also do my best with the materials I can to try to change people's minds or do something equivalent to that and help people out. But the reason why I do it isn't because I think there's an ultimate God who loves us and who would want that for us, or there's a hope for me in the afterlife or a reward for being that. Like I don't need that to do what I do. If anything, I think those ideas limit human potential and limit how we can think about ourselves and our place in the universe. We don't have to. I don't think we have to be the subjects of a divine game of chess to make a difference. I don't think we have to be the subjects of a divine creator to have meaningful relationships with people or to live meaningful lives. That again, it limits human potential in a way. Like, yes, I think what you've described is perhaps the most benevolent form of religion, perhaps the one that leads millions of people every day to lead their best lives. And, we tend not to like touch those people as much in the atheist community, not literally touch, but like, touch upon it because we can't, that's like asshole territory, to be honest. That's where it's like, oh man, grandma, you shouldn't go to church and hang out with your friends because, that's what an organization is. But if the church is funding like gay therapy camps or whatever, like then it becomes wrong. You know what I mean? Like there's a line there that you can cross when you support institutionalized religion. Anyway, I'm talking a lot.
And one thing you said, Scotland, that I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Kelley. No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So go ahead, Kelley.
Oh, one thing that you said that kind of stood out to me is that when you were talking about how these fundamentalist Christians had one idea of what the Bible taught them, and that you all had a different idea. So how do we justify that you came to two completely different conclusions from the same book? And how do we know which one? I mean, maybe those fundamentalists are the ones who are right. How do we know?
Well, we better hope not, because if we are, us three are shit out of luck, because it's a bad.
That's not. Yeah, but
I agree.
I get that, but what I'm wondering about is how can we tell?
Yeah.
How can we tell if you're right or if they're right?
I think if God is true.
Oh no, Scotland, you cut out on our call. I hope you're still there. I'm going to put you in the queue for just a second. And then hopefully the crew can work with that. But I don't know if we'll continue that conversation because we've been talking for a while. But Kelley, I'll tell you this call has been one of my favorites in a long time Not that I haven't had great calls recently, because I have had some great calls recently, but I like this. I like this because Scotland is completely honest in his interpretation of Christianity. He's like, look, this is just my he literally said it's his panacea, which is awesome. And it's like, hey, this is how I live my life, and this is what gives me hope, because he has put into words what I think a lot of people would never admit out loud. And I respect that. I respect that. The difference I think that you and I have found is, well, if we can come to truth conclusions about this, what other kinds of truth conclusions can we come to? And how does that affect the way that we operate in the world, right? Because if you're a Christian versus a hardcore Muslim or a hardcore Buddhist or a hardcore Scientologist, like how you interact with other people, how you live in society is dramatically affected by those ideologies, should you live out their principles coherently. So it's a fascinating thing to talk about. What do you think, Kelley?
It is a fascinating thing to talk about, and I'm always interested how people do, like as we were talking about, come to different conclusions with the same piece of information. And I always wonder if it's just a reflection on what they want to believe rather than what they should believe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be different for everybody, right? Like I definitely at the end of my Christianity, it started to feel more like wishful thinking. Like it started to feel like I was holding this together because I got something out of it. It gave me a particular social life. It gave me a life meaning and a life purpose. And that's hard to come by when you're an atheist. I'll be honest. It's harder to do than it is when you're part of a religion. That's not to say that people don't have it. Obviously they do, but it doesn't come the same way. You're not part of a community that's telling you every Sunday what your place here on earth is for, right? You kind of have to figure things out on your own, and it's a struggle, and it's hard, and sometimes the answers are all over the place and don't really make sense. But that's, I mean, I don't know, that's the human condition. I didn't make it that way. You know what I mean? I just try to do my best. But it looks like Scotland has dropped the call, unfortunately. Scotland, that was a great call.
Yeah,
I love that
call.
call. I love that call. I hope you can call again sometime, because I really enjoyed that. So really quickly, I want to tell you guys about other ways you can support the show. One of the things I mentioned before was Patreon. If you can do that at tiny.cc/PatreonTW. There's a couple different tiers for that. And of course, we give shout outs for Patron of the Week. But you can also support the show by becoming a member. And if you do that, you get emojis in the chat. Your name gets highlighted in the chat, and you will be immune to the chat timeouts. All for as little as 99 cents per month. So if you love the live stuff and you want to be here while the show is happening, being a member is a great way to support the show and show others that you support. So shout outs to all those members right now. Put your emojis in the chat. That's great. One other thing, if you like to be an activist, but you're kind of lazy about it, maybe, you can be a Slacktivist here. If you shop on Amazon, then you can support the ACA at no cost to you. How do you do that? Well, if you visit tiny.cc/AmazonSmileACA and you designate the Atheist Community of Austin as your selected charity, Amazon will donate a portion of their profit directly to the ACA. Isn't that cool? I think so. What do you think, Kelley?
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually have been doing that since they started the program. So fortunately for the ACA, they've gotten a little chunk of my money. So
yeah, I think it's a cool thing. I had never heard of a thing like that before. Amazon was doing it. Maybe that's out there. But hey, if you don't feel like actually giving extra money right now, but you shop on Amazon, you can purchase your goods and still help us. So that's really cool. We also have a quick promo. We're right at the midpoint of the show here that we need to show. So we're going to show that to you now, talking about all the other shows that happen here. Check it out.
The whole idea of like boy brains and girl brains is kind of, it gets in that area where very quickly people take it and turn it into woo-woo science. Kind of like when we talk about like energy or frequencies or things like that.
Sure.
And like, there's a lot of real science to talk about here. And then some people are like, I have a crystal in my pocket that wins the lottery.
Multiple sacred relics, sometimes of the same thing, like the foreskin of Jesus.
Sorry, Dan, I need to interrupt you regarding the foreskin of Jesus, because there were several foreskins of Jesus
No, that's what I'm
hanging
saying.
around.
There's more than one, which is like What does that mean?
I'm going to pretend like I believe in God. I'll make myself a bishop, and then God will bestow upon me all the riches of the poor around me that I would like to steal. Because that's what I see going on here. The guy was a complete grifter.
Through the scientific method as opposed to anything else, because that's the thing that's been the most reliable. And then those of us that are atheists would also say, like, hey, it's probably not going to be God because it's never been God.
Yeah, it hasn't been God yet.
Right.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten that conclusion yet.
It's batting zero.
So
far.
right.
If the answer is evidence is how we get from there was a dude named Jesus who was crucified, and evidence is how we're going to get to him being God. Give me one thing that can be used to demonstrate the truth of the claim Jesus is God.
And we're back to the show. You know, Kelly, I just realized I've been wearing this thing on me and I haven't shown it off yet to the audience. You're probably wondering what this is. Here I got. Is it showing up? No, hang on. Wait. This is important. This is content. Look, there we go. It's the Bob Ross blanket, baby. Look at that. Yeah, get that full camera shot. It's awesome. I love it. It's a great thing to have. And I was just like, you know what? I kind of got a crazy conspiracy vibe going on tonight because I'm talking about COINTELPRO and I got the Charlie Kelley corkboard behind me. So it kind of fits the vibe. So I'm really happy about it. Anyway, just want to show that off. Let's get to another caller, Kelly. Let's talk to this is either Luck or Luke. I think it's Luke because they're calling in from Canada.
Luke?
Please correct me. Yeah, Luke from Canada. You're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, hello. So it's Luke, and it's French. I'm French.
Yes,
Sorry for
yes.
English.
I immediately realized after I saw the Canada part, and that's my cultural ignorance taking over. So yes, Luke, welcome to the show.
It's just a small part of Canada that's French. But
Well,
yeah,
listen. I know. Listen, Luke. I know enough about Canada that they will make a stink about it anyway. They're like half the hosts of this show are Canadian, and they tell me about the French population. Let me tell you, it's not always good. Okay, so just putting that out there.
It takes a lot of space. The French part.
Right.
takes a lot of
Right.
space.
Exactly. Exactly. Very loud minority. Anyway, Luke, what's going on?
So yeah, Truth Wanted. I wanted to talk about the atheist claims about good evidence for God.
Okay.
They always ask. I'm a theist, so they'll always ask me for good evidence for God. And what I have found out when I talk to them is that they don't. They want good evidence, but they don't know exactly what they want. Like they have a vague idea what good evidence is. Like reproducible experiences and those kind of scientific process thing. But when it comes to the specifics of what would make a good evidence for God, they are not aware. So basically, the idea is atheists should know what good evidence is before they ask for it. That's what I wanted to talk about.
It's an interesting claim. It's an interesting claim. Kelly, you look like you were about to say something about it. You want to go first on this?
I have been asked this question, and I know this. That there's always the standard answer of if God is all knowing, He would know what the proof would be that I need. But I'm going to go without that because I think I have a pretty good test, and I've brought it up to Christians who have mentioned this to me before. And I don't know if it would be absolute proof, but it would definitely move the needle for me. If every starving child in the world all of a sudden had a sandwich that they could eat appear in front of them all at the exact same time, that would go a good way to moving the needle for me.
That's an interesting.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. That makes assumptions about God and His motives and what He would want to do too, right? Like if there could be a God that exists and maybe isn't interested in giving starving people sandwiches, right? So I think that might be a test for a certain kind of God. But I might even push back and say it may not be the perfect test. But maybe that wasn't what you're going for.
No, I don't think that's a perfect evidence. But like I said, it would definitely move the needle for me.
Okay. Here's what I would say to this question, because it is an interesting one, right? And I think that a lot of atheists are the first to admit that they may not know exactly what good evidence would look like. So as someone who calls himself an atheist, I have to reiterate the fact that every single person's idea of what a God is is going to be different, right? We all have different philosophical conceptions of this God. Some lean more theist in nature, some lean more deist in nature. So the more specific the idea of that God is, the more we could have testability for those claims. For example, the God traditionally defined in the Judeo-Christian tradition, at least. Well, let's talk about the Christian tradition, I guess, specifically, is one that actually incarnated in a certain form and was able to do things that normally could not happen, given what we know about the laws of nature, right? Was able to manipulate those things. So, like, if somebody was able to manipulate the laws of nature in a way that could not be explainable or could not be done through natural means, like, that might be some evidence for it. May not mean that they're God, over all of the universe, but maybe they have some sort of powers beyond that. There's only so much we can do, though, as beings that exist in a physical space and are limited to our physical observation, right? If there truly was a God that existed outside of physics, outside of the observable universe, then we really couldn't know about its existence, right? What tools would we have? How could we measure that? How could we really know anything about it? And the truth is, we couldn't. So that's why a lot of atheists resign themselves to the label of agnostic atheists. They don't necessarily make the claim that a God doesn't exist, but they choose to live their lives as one that one doesn't. So I don't know. There's a long answer from both of us. Luke, what do you think?
So the first one, every person who would want to eat will have something to eat. And the second one also doing something that is outside of physics. Both of them are akin to miracles, things that are extraordinary and have no current explanation. Science cannot explain it today. And these things, miracles, do happen in time. I'm a Catholic, so we have a process that we use to test miracles, and maybe you're not aware of it.
Well, Luke, no. Wait. You do not
have a bias.
I won't even say that. I won't even say that. You do not have a process to test miracles. You have a council as part of the Catholic Church and as an arm that investigates the claims of other people who have claimed to witness miracles. That is a big difference between testing a miracle and investigating the claims of a miracle, right? If I'm a scientist and I'm trying to prove that a new particle exists, it doesn't happen through eyewitness testimony. They do it through processes of evaluation and stuff, right? And the Catholic Church is the same way. They're not testing new miracles as they appear. They're looking at the reliability of the claims of miracles, which I think is a very big distinction.
Oh, so yeah, because it's not reproducible. Like the miracle is not, we cannot do it on demand, therefore science cannot test it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. There's a committee that gets sent information based on people, and they evaluate those claims, right? So it's not a scientific committee in that sense, but yeah.
So there is a scientific committee that that can test what happened in the past. They don't have to test what will happen in the future. They can test if the event really happened in the past. We have historians and those kind of scientists that talk about the past, or how do you call those detective people, that kind of proof of events of the past. So what I was wondering, maybe if I could ask a question.
Can I ask you a question first, Luke? Because
every person wants to eat will have something to eat. That's a miracle. And if it were to happen, why? Well, it's not something that will happen on demand. You understand that it's not every day you will ask for everyone to have something to eat will eat. It would be something that would have happened in the past, and then would you still be unconvinced that there is a God, or would you be convinced at that time that there was a God, or would you need more than just people telling you, "Oh, I needed bread," and then I had bread?
I thought I already answered that question when I said it would move the needle for me. But you say that we can test these claims of the supernatural from the past. And I'm wondering, let's say we have a miracle of a crying statue, right? That cried 150 years ago. Now, how do we test that? How can a scientist or a historian go back and test that statue actually cried 150 years ago?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't know who said it, maybe Kelley. So I don't know the process. What I was asking atheists, you and ObjectivelyDan, I think his name, Dan. Sorry, I'm not familiar with your names. So yeah, what would be the evidence that you are looking for, right? So you say there will need to be a miracle, and this miracle should be tested by science. How should science proceed for you to be, not convinced, but move the needle? At least, like Kelley said, it's not convincing enough to say there is a God, but it would move the needle a little bit.
I would think with my example anyway, with the sandwiches, I would think that there would be enough eyewitnesses. Just about every person in the world would be an eyewitness to this miracle happening. You know, so that's why I said it would really move the needle for me, because even if we couldn't replicate it to do it a second time, there would be literally millions of people who saw it happen when it happened.
Yeah, I mean, beyond that, right? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was about to say, and that to me, that's why it would move the needle for me, is because it would be something that so many people were able to witness happening at exactly the same time.
Right, and Kelley is pointing out too.
There is a number.
Well, look. He's pointing out too.
People that needs to.
Yeah, there's a number of people that witness these miracles, but look, they don't come up to like when a paleontologist, right, is making claims about what happened in history. There's a great place in Waco. It's a mammoth site that's there, and they have claims about when these specific mammoths were there, you know, several thousand years ago, and what actually happened to them in their deaths, and why they're here. Because we know about minerals, we know about weather patterns, we look at these processes, and we can extrapolate on what happens in the past. We also have lots and lots of other methods that involve radiocarbon dating and other kinds of forms of dating that we can figure out what happens there, because we have a precedent. That's the thing with natural science, is that there is a precedent that we can look at to demonstrate the truth claims of these matters. The problems with miracles, of course, is that it supersedes that precedent. It's breaking precedent. That's kind of the whole point of a miracle. And the reason why we talk about miracles so much, by the way, is because if Kelley just told me he was a god, what other way could he really demonstrate that to me than by doing something that no other thing could do? Now, again, he could just be a super powerful alien or whatever, and that's why we make the distinction of moving the needle and not necessarily being convinced that he's a god. But he has to be able to at least do something that couldn't be done otherwise. Otherwise, he's just saying that he's God. There's 1,000 people every day that say they're God. That doesn't really mean anything. Now, again, with the examples of the church, right? I understand that there's a committee that happens, and they have doctors on that committee. They have educated people with PhDs who will say, yes, this is what happened at this, and we can't explain what's going on with this stuff, and that's why. Yeah, and allegedly atheists too, right?
Yeah.
They're allegedly atheists according to the Catholic Church. I don't know how true it is or not. It's whatever with me. But when we're talking about with like medical science, for example, like which is like what a lot of them are coming about, like there's still it's a lot of like, oh, there's a tumor here from cancer and it was gone, or that kind of stuff. It's always stuff that, you know, like medical science and other things still leave room open for. We don't see breaking of the boundaries of physics in any of this stuff. And if we do, or if we hear about it, it's usually like 500-year-old tales from Saint Aquinas the Thrifty, from like from some region in France. Like it's not something that's accessible to us like it would be with the natural sciences, right? Because we're just talking about eyewitness claims at that point. Anyway, I'm talking a lot. Go ahead, Luke.
Why would it need to break the laws of physics?
Well, if it was done by physics, it wouldn't be a miracle.
Yeah, right. That's what makes it a miracle.
To ask the question again, why would it need to break the laws of physics? You said your first answer was because it wouldn't be a miracle if it doesn't break the laws of physics. The question is, why wouldn't it be a miracle even if it follows the laws of physics? Like, could you?
Well, why would I care about?
Yeah.
Why would I care about something that could be done through nature?
Yeah, then what would set that off from any other happening? You know, if
yeah. So God could be the one responsible for the thing that follows the laws of physics.
How do we know? Because if it's following the laws of physics, it could be the laws of physics that are the reason for it happening. It doesn't have to be God
or Krishna.
That's why
or
a miracle
powers. Yeah,
right. That's why a miracle has to break the laws of physics. It has to prove that God can break those laws. Otherwise, it's just a natural thing happening. It's no longer a miracle. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
Then you keep saying it's a natural thing, therefore it's not a miracle. What I'm wondering is why do you have this kind of
Luke,
definition?
Here's why. Luke. Let me tell you why. No. Let me tell you why. If Jesus Christ himself came up to you and said, I am the Son of God, are you going to believe him without him showing that? I've met several people in my life who claim that they are the God or Son thereof, and I am not convinced that they are. So, like, what set Jesus apart, allegedly, was that he could do this stuff. Otherwise, why would you follow the guy? Because he has some pithy statements of philosophy? I mean, that's a lot of people, right? It's the miracle stuff that sets him apart. Otherwise, he's just a guy, right?
Yes. So,
going back to my sandwich example, if I just made all the sandwiches and gave them to starving people, then it's not a miracle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, making so much sandwiches. Anyway, this kind of breaking the laws of physics. Jesus were to appear to me, say, I'm God, I would say, okay, maybe have a miracle, and the miracle wouldn't break the laws of physics, but still would be made by something that is a higher power than mine. That would be good evidence. Doesn't have to.
Can you give an example? Because I don't know what you mean.
Example, because I don't get what you're saying. I really, honestly, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't see how a miracle can just be something that could happen any time of any day.
If the blind could see.
Yeah, so Jesus would go to a blind person, put his hand on his eyes, and the person would start to see. This kind of miracle would be a good thing that could give me.
That's just a miracle.
That would break the law of physics, though.
Yeah, that would break the laws of physics, because like blindness isn't naturally healed.
We have cases of people that do happen.
Yeah,
really? We've got cases of we have
God involved.
We'll write it in here.
We actually have cases of people getting their sight back because somebody touched their eyes.
Right, that's the point, right? We have obviously like surgeries and other kinds of things that like help people restore their sight, but there hasn't been a case where somebody just put their hands on their eyes, right? And that's what you're describing. That would definitely be a miracle.
So you understand that it wouldn't break the laws of physics per se.
But it does, though.
It does. I don't know where you don't think
it does violate the laws of physics.
All right. Maybe take another example that is simpler. He would cure cancer in front of me, right?
Okay. That would also break the laws of physics.
Break the laws of physics.
Oh, okay. So you are, because many atheists that I've talked to have this kind of claim that there is spontaneous
remission, spontaneous remission. Yes, it's a documented phenomenon amongst people with cancer. Yes.
Yes. But it doesn't happen. But it doesn't happen immediately.
Not supernatural because it happens without God.
You're not. That's not what you're saying, though. You're saying somebody put their hands on somebody and immediately cured it. That is not the same thing as cancer going into remission and getting better over time.
Right.
You're talking about an instant miracle happening, and that is breaking the laws of physics, because that doesn't happen when somebody touches another person.
Yeah, taking pills and getting radiotherapy for your cancer and then having it go away, that's using the laws of physics to make that go away. That's not a miracle.
It seems like you're defining it seems like you're defining the word miracle to include everyday happenstance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I am. And that's why I am.
Well, then it's not a miracle. It's just everyday happenstance.
For it to break the laws of physics. Why is it needed for God to break the laws of physics? I am
because that's what makes it a miracle.
Because yes,
we keep answering you, and you're not listening. That's what, when you break the law of physics, is what makes it a miracle.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain this to you any better.
Yeah, I understand. So there is no way for you, besides breaking the laws of physics, for God to have a good evidence. Something that you consider good evidence would be something that would break the laws of physics. There is no other way.
Yes, because anybody who's doing things just through the laws of physics is not a god.
Anybody can do that. I can do that. You can do that. Dan can do that. Anybody listening to the show can do that. It's not a miracle.
Or at least not a god in a meaningful sense of that word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's what I mean by they don't exactly know what they mean when they say they need good evidence. What you mean by breaking the laws of physics is doing something.
I'm not sure that you understand what you mean when you say miracle.
What?
Look,
I said, I'm not sure that you understand what you mean when you. I said, I don't think you understand what you mean when you say miracle.
You don't understand what I mean. So what?
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Okay.
I said, I don't think you understand what you mean when you say miracle.
Okay. So maybe.
Can you define miracle for me the way you're using it?
I want to hear what Luke has to say about this first, because we're running out of time with this call.
Yeah. So shit. Where was I? What was the question I needed to ask, or were you? The question.
You're saying that, at least you started to say something that we somehow can't define what a miracle is, because you think that there would be good evidence for a God to exist without a miracle to happen, and the examples that you're citing are things that we are calling miracles, right? Which presently haven't been done by human beings. Like, no human being has ever demonstrated to put their hand on somebody and cure them of blindness or cure them of cancer. Like, that hasn't happened. If that were to happen, I could say, yeah, that would be a miracle, but it hasn't been demonstrated to have happened. So there's the disconnect here. I don't know if there's a language barrier with this.
Years ago, we don't have, the science thing that will convince an atheist today. So what happens today are not these kind of miracles that happen.
Well,
today.
Luke, we would argue it never happened.
Sorry,
right?
Cutting you off.
well, Luke, we would say there are some people that say, well, these miracles happen at some point and they don't happen anymore, or we have tools of science now, so they don't happen. But most atheists are going to say, like, yeah, they probably never happened. They probably always started off as stories. Like, we live in an age right now where you can go to YouTube and watch anything you want, literally anything you want that's legal to watch. And if it's illegal, you can go to other websites to watch it. And I've yet to see anybody record a miracle happen. I've yet to see any designated scientific body that isn't associated with the Catholic Church or any church whatsoever that says, yes, this is a bona fide miracle. It just doesn't happen. So, like, why should I believe that they do happen? If by the best, most reasonable, most replicable methods we have don't tell us that these things happen, why should I believe that they happen any more than fairies or giants or other acts of nature? I don't see a reason.
So it's not because you don't have a video of me eating a hamburger yesterday that it didn't happen. The video of the miracle happening is just one more proof of it really happened than what is needed, right? So
because
we do have a fake video of people curing people of you can type on YouTube and find someone filming himself curing the eyes of someone else, right?
Yeah,
so
they're fake,
video. It's
but
not real. All right. Okay. So you understand that even if you were to find a real miracle that is taped, this is not enough. It is not enough to have a video of it being taped. You need more evidence than just the video for you to say, okay, it is indeed.
I agree.
That's why I use the sandwich example, because there would be so many eyewitnesses. I wouldn't be relying on a video. I thought that my example pretty well. I thought, and to cover a lot of the bases, including this one.
Yeah,
Right,
and look,
if you want to, so wait, there is
Luke,
so many ideas here too, people.
Luke, we got. I know, I understand. It's a hard thing. Listen, we're running out of time with this call. I'm sorry, we can't talk to you for much longer.
Okay,
because we got a lot of other people. Right. But this is what I'm going to leave you with. Okay, I understand your point in saying that. Yes, well, you need more than just a YouTube video, right? There has to be more than that, and I agree with you. A YouTube video is not enough. YouTube videos can be fake. But we haven't even found a real YouTube video yet. You know what I mean? Like a YouTube video would be like the bare minimum that we could do. And because the claim that a miracle happened requires a preponderance of evidence that's higher than the claim, oh, I ate a hamburger yesterday, we have to take that. We have to have stronger convictions for that, right? Like in the American court system, you have to, beyond a shadow of a doubt, think that somebody is guilty for a crime, whereas in civil procedures it's just a preponderance of evidence if you're considered more than 50%, really. And the reason is because someone who's guilty of a criminal offense is subject to penalties that can often be for the rest of their life that they have to deal with. So we take it more serious consideration for that. The same thing we have to do here. This isn't a question of whether you ate a hamburger or not. This is a question of whether the universe is operating under divine guidance, or all these other stuff that happens if Christianity is real specifically. But anyway, look, I do have to let you go because we've been talking for a bit and we got other people who want to talk to us. Not to say that I don't think that was a good call. However, I do think your definition of miracle is very suspect. And I don't know if that's a language barrier thing or what, but like people just doing regular stuff that's kind of defeats the point of the word miracle, But
thanks for the call, Luke.
Yeah, thanks for the call. And before we get to our next call, I have to tell you guys, we have a brand new store that you should check out. It's at tiny.cc/merchaca. You can get your favorite items like the t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs, and check out all of our brand new items like our beanies, cell phone cases, and tote bags. We even feature a special limited edition item each month. So check that out on the store if you haven't already. We got that Truth Wanted special shirt, baby, that you should look at if you haven't already. If you like this show, but you just like listening to my voice and you don't like looking at my face, that's fine. I feel that way some days. You can listen to the audio only version of this show if you go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And that's basically going to be your one-stop shop for all of your shows in audio form, including Truth Wanted and all the other cool stuff that happens at the atheist community of Austin. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. But hey, I have a different announcement than I usually do. I know this is kind of, if you're a regular listener, you're used to hearing some of this, but this one's different. New announcement alert. I should have like a sound effect or something. But anyway, this is a very special thing. So here we go. It's been 2 years since we've all been able to congregate together, but based on the updates from the CDC and other scientific organizations, we are going to be able to ease back into doing live shows and events. So our first event is going to be Saturday, August 27th. It's going to be the return of the Bat Cruise. So you're going to see people like Matt Dillahunty, Jim Barrows, Student Dr. Ben, Johnny P. Angel, and of course, myself are all going to be there for this Bat Cruise, a 2-hour cruise around Lady Bird Lake that brings us to the Congress Avenue Bridge at sundown, where you get to see the world's largest urban bat colony. It's a thing that the ACA has been doing for years, and we are happy to bring it back. So you should definitely check that out if you're going to be in the Austin area. Tickets are going to be $40 each for the 2-hour cruise from 7 to 9, and the boarding is going to begin at 6:30. So the event details are going to be on a link that you can find in the description, but it's at atheist-community.org/bat-cruise. So check that out if you want to get some of those tickets. And also, on the next day, on August 28th, if you're in Austin, you can consider making plans to join us in the studio audience for a live broadcast of Talk Heathen. It's going to be hosted by Johnny P. Angel and Student Dr. Ben, and the Atheist Experience, which is going to be hosted by Matt Dillahunty and Jim Barrows. So doors are going to be open at noon, and parking is limited. It is a small building that we have. So if you can't make it there this month, we will continue to broadcast from the library the last Sunday of each month. So keep watching this show and look at the website, atheist-community.org, for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future, including, folks, live episodes of me back in the studio for Truth Wanted. So look forward to that when it happens. It's going to be really cool. I'm going to be excited to actually see some audience members in person again. I got to host Talk Heathen. Was it last Sunday I did that? Sunday before? Time is a construct. I don't know, but it happened, and it was really cool to see people in person again. I'm really excited to see more. So check that out if you are interested. And let's try to get at least one more call. Maybe we'll have time for two. So let's get to it. We're going to talk to Jamie, who's calling in from Texas. Jamie, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. And goodness me, you guys are quite close. I'm just around the corner on North Lamar, so maybe I'll come and see you all live.
Yeah, dude, come on down. We're real people, I promise. We're not plants by the FBI. Well, actually, Jamie, let me clarify. Kelly might be. Low key, I can't account for him. He's seen some shit. I don't know.
I was just about to say, too, speak for yourself, Dan. I was just about to say.
I'm definitely not. I would never be a Fed. Are you kidding me? No way. I'm good. So anyway, Jamie, what's up?
The evidence as presented is convincing enough for this skeptic, but
that's great.
Point. Over the last 2-3 years, I've found my skepticism and my rising, and my tolerance for misinformation and even superstition lowering, and my position calcifying to the point where I believe that there's no minimum level of superstition or misinformation that's harmless. Like, I see stuff like horoscopes as just the thin end of the wedge that could lead someone down a path to denying that COVID's real, or that 9/11 was an inside job. And all I want to know is, I want to calibrate. Am I being a dick?
Yeah. It's a great question. I'll start with this, if you don't mind, Kelly, and then I want to hear your take, because we kind of alluded to this earlier in the show. I think this is like one of the most prescient questions the atheist community has to ask itself. Because what are we as a community? What are our goals? What are we trying to do? A lot of people feel differently about this. There are some people that want no religion in the world whatsoever and just want to say, no, forget that shit. We shouldn't have any kinds of churches or whatever. And there are some that are like, well, we can exist, in this world and live in harmony, yada, yada. And some people say, oh, we actually need to adopt the traditions that religions have and adopt these customs and ideas and incorporate it into our lives. So there's a huge spectrum that people think on this, and I don't think that you can have a one single objective answer to this question. I know it sounds like a cop-out, but I really think that people have to be able to answer this for themselves. I can tell you what I think about this. And I grew up the first 20 years of my life as a Christian, okay? And I had some wonderful, amazing, intimate experiences with people because of we were gathering under the name of Jesus, okay? So I can attest to that and say there were times where it was absolutely great. There was also times that gave me absolutely existential dread for my own existence. There were times where I saw bigotry. There were times where I saw hatred. And there were times I saw ignorance, because it was fueled by this text, by the institution that is religion. And so I've seen the harm firsthand of what it can do. But I also know that there were people that grew up that don't have the same experiences as me, that live their life as pretty liberal Christians, do whatever, and like our call with Scotland, just want to be chill with people. And that, while I do find that respectable, I don't think that there is a foundational ideology that can really tether yourself to that. In other words, that's only circumstantial by the person and not really what these institutions exist to do, right? Like organizations like Focus on the Family and stuff, I'm not going to say anything that's legally indictable, but they're not within my best interests that they exist. And they exist because there's an ideology that backs them up that says that they should exist and continue to do the things that they do. In the United States here, we talked about this before, Christian nationalism is on the rise. It's a hot topic again. Why? Because the institutions of religion exist. so yeah, it's harmful, it's deadly, and it's a gateway drug to other things. But how do you litigate that on your daily relationships with people? I don't know. I think the best thing you can do is introduce ideas of skepticism and have conversations with people when warranted, and sometimes even break that politeness barrier if you can do it. I had a conversation with a guy, Anthony Magnabosco. I was a young college kid. 30 minutes took my time. That conversation changed my life. It wasn't the only conversation I needed, but it was a stepping stone in the path of getting to where I am today. And so our daily conversations with people are some of the most important forms of activism we can do. Whether you think that all religion should die or that we can coexist with it, we at least need to introduce these ideas and skepticism and possible alternative views. Otherwise, well, we get shit like the guy who just died trying to raid the FBI for some reason. I mean, that's just what happened this week. You know, we could talk about the whole history of it, but anyway, Jamie, that's my long ass answer. Kelley, you should talk now.
I should. I like the way you phrased that.
Yeah.
To answer the original question, is there any tolerable level of misinformation or superstition? No. Simple as that. No. I feel you becoming less tolerant. As I've gotten older, I too have become less tolerant. I got more tolerant again a few years later when I realized that me being angry and approaching it from an angry point of view wasn't helping the situation at all. So I've learned to get more tolerant and to control my anger when I'm talking to these people, because it keeps an open dialogue open instead of just yelling at each other, yelling past each other. So I agree with you that there is no tolerable level, and I think we do need to stand up to it, but think we need to be careful in the way we stand up to it, because we don't want to shun people. We don't want to turn people away. We want to get them to listen to us, right? And I think it's important how we approach it.
I absolutely agree with that. And I try to approach conversations of that nature, ones that are actually good-natured, with an openness and also a willingness to be wrong. I mean, I couldn't call myself a true skeptic if I wasn't willing to be proved wrong with sufficient evidence. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm going to start, the best way I can think of it is I'm going to have to start treating any kind of superstition or unsubstantiated claims the same way that I treat this fine, cheap, blended Canadian whiskey that I'm currently drinking, knowing it's bad for me, and that is bad for them, but I shouldn't litigate them or tell them, oh no, you can't believe that, you shouldn't believe that, like you're stupid for believing that. Just please be aware that you are believing in something with no substantiation behind it, and be honest about it. At least that much can we agree, and imbibe. And I work for a major cancer charity, so I know exactly how much damage I'm doing to myself, but it's also that experience that has hardened me against people who, oh, COVID's a hoax, oh, no vaccine, anti-vax, and all that kind of stuff. It's caused so much harm.
Right. There's a real harm in the tolerance of ideas that are harmful, right? So, like, I believe on an institutional level, you can't let some of that shit fly. I would never allow the CDC, for example, to say, well, COVID may be real or it may not be real. It's just all kind of depends on you, baby. Like, no, I would say absolutely not. It as an organization has a responsibility to the public to give correct, factual, and up-to-date scientific knowledge on what we know about the virus and what are the best ways to do it. So yeah, like there are certain institutions where absolutely we can't corrupt that. The problem, of course, comes in our daily lives, right? Like, look, my cat died a couple weeks ago, right? And I talked about that in my work group chat, and one of my coworkers was like, "Oh, can I pray for your cat?" Before I was about to put him down. Now, I don't know what she was intending. I don't know if she thought my cat was going to get better just by praying for it. I don't know what she want, but like that, what I took that to mean as this was a nice gesture of somebody saying that they were thinking about me in a time that was sad, right? So, like, do I litigate with her on that? Do I say, hey, actually, your prayers don't work because your God's not real, idiot? No, come on, that's a dick move. Nobody likes that. So, like, it's just gonna harm our movement if we like litigate every single situation that comes up. You kind of have to pick and choose your battles sometimes, and really see where the harm is gonna go with some of this stuff, you know. But there's no simple, easy answer as to which box you can put it in sometimes, right?
Polite honesty, an open mind, maybe bring the throttle back to 80% and not go absolutely ham on everything.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for giving me a mirror to bounce my ideas off in front of however many people are listening and watching.
Yeah,
and
of course, Jamie.
I can't take much more of your time unless there's anything else you want to ask me.
No, I mean, we got one more call I want to take at the end of the show here. So thanks so much for being short and sweet and asking a great question, something that I wish I could give you a hard and satisfactory answer on, like hard line answer on, like, oh, yeah, this is when and this is when you shouldn't. Like, I just don't know if that exists. I've been doing this for a couple years now, and I still haven't figured out exactly where it is. Like, it's kind of a I know it when I see it sort of thing, you know? The sad truth is people don't change their mind as soon as they encounter evidence to the contrary. It does take time. So you have to take that into consideration too. But anyway, Kelley, you were going to say something.
I just wanted to thank Jamie for calling. That was a great call. Great question and a great call. So yeah, got a little tongue-tied there.
Yeah, it was a great question and a great call. I think if the crew will let me, we'll take one more call here before the end of the show. Maybe go a little bit over time. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that if you want to talk to me or anybody else that helps make this show happen, you can do that. You can go to truth@atheist-community.org, or you can reach out at tv@atheist-community.org and see what's going on our website at atheist-community.org. And I personally love getting email messages. I don't get them enough. I really don't. I get them occasionally every once in a while right now, and maybe like a few a month. And that makes me sad. I wish I could talk to more of you guys to do that. So, like, I'm more likely to respond to an email than I am on YouTube comments and stuff. Although that doesn't mean you shouldn't comment or engage with the video, because I do look at that stuff too. But that's one way you should do it. Another thing I just want to point out is there is a Facebook group, and it's run by fans and it's for fans. You can check it out. It's at tiny.cc/FBTWG to interact with other fans. That's the Truth Wanted fan group. And there's some fun posts on there. People are very funny on that Facebook group, I think. But anyway, Kelley, we got one more call that I think we should take here at the tail end of the show. We got Gabriel calling in from Canada. A lot of the Canucks calling in tonight. Gabriel, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm I kind of forgot about all the news that happened, and now I'm thinking about it again, and I'm like, man, what a week. It's crazy.
Yeah, what a week, yes. How about your co-host? How are you? What was your name again?
Kelley.
Yeah, Kelley. Hi.
Hi.
What's up, Gabriel? How can we help you? You're live on the air right now, so.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you about conspiracy theories and comparing them with class theories like Marxism and things like that.
Oh, that's interesting. What? Yeah, tell me more about that. What do you mean?
If we go by conspiracy theories, I'm talking about of the likes. There's some secret groups controlling the government, either aliens, reptilians, or if we go by far right things, it could be Jews or other things like that.
The deep state.
So,
yeah.
So that's something that I think should be differentiated from class theories, like from a ruling class ruling over an exploited class. And maybe you can see there are some things that are correspondent to each other, like a small group over the population. But what do you think could be different? What do you think the big difference is between like this theories of classes and conspiracy theories? Like,
wow.
why some go to one instead of the other?
Okay, that's a really, really, really interesting question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before, Kelly. I don't know if you have either. So when we talk about like Marxism, right? We're talking about a historical lens, an analysis, a tool to look at history, which I think is different from other kinds of conspiracy theories, right? So like taking the New World Order, for example, or the deep state. This is an idea that says, oh, well, the world governments are controlled by an elite few that have manipulated the events of history. The problem with that idea is that beyond that description, it doesn't go into specifics onto the mechanisms of how that's done, right? So there are some people that will say, oh, well, they do this through programming and all these other things, but they're very nebulous and they can't point to specific institutions that actually make these events happen, because I mean they're not real, right? Like they're just kind of made up. Whereas when you look at an idea like Marxism or really any other kind of historical lens, talking about not just class theory, but other theories of historical, like great man theory. That's what I'm thinking of. Other lenses of history that kind of view events. Yes, they're self-referential, and sometimes they can kind of come with conclusions that they've already reached to in their premises, but they can at least describe specific mechanisms as to how that happens, right? So like Marxism talks about class consciousness and class theories as descriptions of different elements of history, right? Like that's just a historical lens that you can use whether or not the people of those times viewed that historical reality themselves. The mechanisms are the same. It's through monetary value, right? You can actually make an analysis and look at and say, oh, this class of people actually owned all of the land in this area or had most of the wealth in that society. And you can look at that through historical data and actually come to a conclusion. Whereas, again, New World Order types, deep state types, there's no real data that they're looking at. There's no real stuff that they can sift through. It's just ideas put out there. So while I wouldn't call Marxism a science, as some folks do, there is a bit more like credibility to it than your average basement conspiracy theory, I guess. I don't know. What do you think about that, Gabriel?
Yeah, I think it would be like a framework, a tool to analyze history, and not necessarily a science.
Exactly.
And
yeah,
and so
it's like critical race theory is another one, right? Where you can look at the historical lenses and see the truths that come out of making certain assumptions about history, like that provides results. Saying, oh, this was all the New World Order, that doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah. And why do you think that some people go for one instead of the other? Do you think it has to do with education or
yes,
their surroundings?
Or perceived losing out? I think that's a lot of it, where people feel that they've lost out on something in life, so they attach themselves to these conspiracy theories because they need an excuse for why their life hasn't turned out the way they thought it should have turned out. I'm not rich because of those guys over there that have been plotting against me. They're plotting against all of us, right?
Yeah. Humans like quick heuristics. I mean, they like quick methods of dividing categories up and figuring out quick answers to complicated problems, right? So like it's no secret that like white supremacists in our society are generally very uneducated, and what I mean uneducated is that they don't have the same level of education that other people higher in the country do, but also there is a class relations going on there. Like you can also point to people who have a general belief in particular conspiracy theories tend to not be on the wealthiest sides of the country. Now, of course, there's great exceptions to that. Pretty much all of Trump's lawyers, who think that the deep state is the thing, and they're all practicing lawyers. I don't know how that works, but they do, and they talk about the election fraud and stuff. Whether they sincerely believe it or not, You know, there is a through line, and that's not to also point out that there is a through line between religion and class as well. You know, like it's uncomfortable. Like atheists tend to not bring this up because it's kind of harsh, because we don't want to call people who believe in religion stupid. And obviously, there's plenty of academics that have religious belief, but you know, the data does show that the more religious you are, you tend to be on the lower prongs of society. Like that, I think that's true for pretty much every country on earth, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I do think it's an education thing, but like when I was a Christian, I grew up in a middle class home, and I, you know, my parents were pretty okay. I went to a really great school. I was taught though great critical thinking skills. I actually went to a great public school district, and eventually went to college. So I had that privilege of being able to get those tools to figure out what's true from not. And a lot of people don't have that. So it is kind of a privilege issue, I think.
And do you think that maybe those who ascribe to those type of conspiracy theories, that maybe through education we could get them to adopt maybe some form of Marxism, and from there they can maybe start questioning the current status quo, and maybe join the progressive left, and from there, you know?
I mean, so
that's possible, or?
Yeah, so here's the thing about education, right? The difference between education and propaganda is a thin line sometimes, because what people perceive to be true can often have political associations to it that some people may or may not subscribe to. So it's very difficult. I mean, obviously, right? If you grew up in an area of the world that, let's say you grew up in China, I don't know. I don't know if it's a great example. I have no idea what the Chinese education system looks like, but I bet they talk about the history of the Chinese Communist Party, and obviously they have to talk about Chinese history in the 20th century, right? And I'm sure they paint a very different picture of what that looks like compared to U.S. schools or European schools, right? And so like they probably have a different point of view of the world because of their education. So yeah, I mean, like what you grow up with is going to change it. Yeah, I mean, should we do the same thing? I mean, yes, but like, what do we teach that's different from other people? Obviously, I believe in critical thinking. I believe in science. I believe in these things. Like, but there's lots of places that teach that, and some people will go to these conspiracy theories anyway. So it's not an end all be all solution either, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's complicated.
What do you think, Kelley?
Again, I think that a lot of I don't know that we can tie Marxism or anything like that in with the conspiracy theories, and I don't think that, as Dan said, that educating people to how Marxism works is going to get us any closer to instituting a society that is more socialistic in bend. I think you're going to have a lot more social hurdles to get over besides just education. You're going to have to change the way people think. I mean, and that's more than just educating them. It's
right,
as Dan said, that line between education and propaganda is really thin.
Yeah,
I also think the only deep state in America right now is depression. So,
yeah, I mean, like, look, when I was in school, right, I didn't get a history of the Republican Party. Well, actually, that's not true. You kind of get a history of political parties and stuff. But like, I wasn't taught deep modern Democratic ideology or modern Republican ideology, right? I understood, like, when I went to government class, like some points of view there, but I wasn't taught one was right from the other. And yet people in my class and everywhere around America still grow up thinking one way or another, either way, right? Like what it can influence you and what can change your mind is how you present historical events. Like the Civil War is a very popular topic in this country because there's a part of the country and part that I grew up in that have a very different narrative about the Civil War, about how it was about states' rights and not about the slavery of Americans, which is not true. I mean, it was states' rights, but it was about slavery. Like it's a big fact. So like that can influence your politics, you know?
It was about the state's right to own slaves, right?
Yeah, states' right to own slave. Yeah, I mean, they make it seem like it's about other stuff, but that was like the big thing. So anyway, historical events and how you perceive it, that will definitely influence your political ideology. But like, I don't know if just teaching straight up, hey, Marxism exists is gonna like make more people. I mean, I guess it would inherently make some people more Marxist, right? Because they know what it is. But that by itself, I don't know if that's enough. Anyway, interesting questions, Gabriel, but we do have to ramp up the show. Thank you so much.
No problem.
For calling on in.
Yeah, great call.
For having
Yeah, of course. Like I'll be honest, that's a weird one. Caught me off guard there, but I see where he was getting at, right? I see what he was trying to say. You agree, Kelley?
Yeah, I totally agree that when you have a lot of people on the bottom end of society, that the have-nots, they're going to try to find something that's going to give them something to have. And I think that's what he was talking about, is that a lot of those people could have something if they embraced Marxism or a more socialist form of government. So
yeah, like if it's taught more in schools, I mean, I do believe, more people would adopt to it, but it wouldn't make it, I don't know, opposing ideas go away, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I grew up with a narrative of the Civil War, and I think differently now. So I don't know, but that's also a result of my education. It gets complicated. Anyway, we're out of time. We got to wrap this thing up. Kelley, thanks so much for being on the show. Can people find you at other places, Kelley?
Yeah, you can find me on the Nonprofits, the flagship show. I'm one of the grizzled old sailors on the flagship show. So you can find me there. You can also find me on the Fan Run Discord, where I do a few shows or features over there, including Meet the ACA and News Chat and Speak Your Truth. So come on over there and hang out and talk to me there.
Hell yeah. You can find me on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan. Please like, subscribe, comment on this video. Tell me what you thought of the deep dive, whether I should still keep doing this, whether this one was a dud, and tell me like if you just don't like it when I host and you'd rather see other hosts on. Like we want that engagement either way. So you just give us your thoughts. That's what the internet was made for, so that you can give, whatever unqualified opinion you want to give, and sometimes qualified ones, but mostly unqualified.
I can say I'm definitely a fan of the Dan's deep dive. So
I'm glad. Cool. Well, we'll see what the court of public opinion has to say about it. But before we go, I would be remiss if I forgot to talk about the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, stupendous crew that helped make this show happen every single week. We're going to that crew cam, baby. Look at those people. They put up with my bullshit almost every single week, and I don't know how they do it, because like half of them don't even get paid. And I don't either. So props to them. They're saints. They really are, in the most atheist sense of that word. So, folks, I'm Objectively Dan. That's going to be it for tonight. This has been another great episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between The Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.